Hey there, Brian Goulet here of gouletpens.com for episode number 202. For those of you that love palindromes, this is Goulet Q&A, and this is the third video that I've shot today, and I'm freaking loving it. This morning, I got to do a Right Now, where Rachel got to show off her pen collection, because I recorded this Q&A on Wednesday. I got to hang out with Dante Del Vecchio of Peniter, and I'm going to be publishing a video. Not I, but my team will be publishing a video that I recorded with him today while he was here. And we're gonna be publishing that, I think, on next Friday. And I gotta say, he's up to some pretty cool stuff. So that's pretty rad. And there's been a lot of other cool stuff going on. So just cranking out the videos lately. Andy's been a champ. Other people have been coming in, Rachel, Drew, and other folks. Colin, I'm gonna get him on. Other folks on our team, I got probably 7 or 8 people that have volunteered. So we're gonna start mixing other people in on the Right Nows. If you don't know what Right Now is, you have to check out other stuff on our YouTube channel. Be kind of surprised if you're watching this and you don't know what it is, but that's totally cool. Check them out. All right, so Dante was here, showed me some really cool stuff. It was cool to get to hang out with him. I've been working with him for a couple of years, formerly under a different pen company, but he's up to some cool stuff where he is finding a nice home at Peniter, so that's kind of interesting. Don't want to spoil anything, but I gotta say, he's up to some pretty exciting stuff. We've launched the Conklin Duraflex, which is pretty rad, and it's a limited edition pen. And actually, I just so happen to have it in my pocket here now that I think about it. Oh, what do you think about that? So this is a $60 resin pen with rose gold trim with a steel flex nib. And it's a pretty decent writing flex nib, I gotta say. You know, as far as flex nibs go, and you know, is this one a worthy upgrade from something like a Noodler's pen? I would say yes, personally. It's not for everybody, but it's a pretty solid pen. So if we have any by the time Friday rolls around when this video publishes, you may want to consider it, but I don't know if we will because they seem to be moving along pretty good already, even though I launched them about an hour and 15 minutes ago from when I'm starting this video. But anyway, pretty iconic, pretty interesting stuff going on. What else have I got? Let's see here. Lamy Safari in all black has now kind of officially gotten out there. We have it on our site. So it's a black, basically a black version of the pens they've been coming out with the petrol and the dark lilac and stuff like that. So it's got black trim, black nib. It's a matte finish, and it's all black. Pretty self-explanatory, and I know you might be wondering, like, is it really that different from the charcoal? I don't have one physically here to show you, but I did get to see the pen as they were producing it in December. It's I'm not gonna say that it's like worlds apart from the charcoal. It's not like if you have a charcoal, it's like you have to get this black. You really don't. But if you like black pens, if you like matte black pens that are kind of all stealthed out, I do think this one is worthy of consideration. And it's, you know, especially if you like that matte texture. I personally do. I prefer Safaris in that texture, but not everybody does, and that's totally understandable. I totally get it. So getting this weird thing happening on the camera. It might be the battery dying. We'll find out in a hot second if I have to stop this thing. But either way, I'm gonna keep on going. Let's see here, what else? Got an announcement of the Pelikan M600 white turquoise, which is looking pretty rad. So I gotta say that's, I think that's gonna be rather epic. And so we're gonna get a bunch of those on hand. It's probably gonna be another month or so before we get those. But look for those on our site. You've got an email notification list that you can sign up for already, so you can find out. But surely we'll be talking about it as it seems to be impending. And then also we have an announcement of Pelikan M120, iconic blue. And the M120 is not a pen that comes around very often. It's kind of a vintage design, and we've never sold that specific model before, but we're gonna give it a shot. Get this weird like red bar that's coming across every few seconds. I don't know why. I really hope this thing records correctly. Anyway, let's get into the questions for this week, shall we? First one is a pen and writing question from kolecoomer on Instagram. What does Brian prefer, a heavier, more substantial pen or a quick, lightweight pen? All right, this one kind of borderline with a personal question. It's kind of a personal / pen question. I kind of threw it in the front. It depends on what I'm using it for. I personally kind of lean towards heavier pens. I'm a big person. I have large hands. Heavier pens to me just don't bother me. They feel natural in my hand. It makes it feel like I'm actually holding something in my hand. So I kind of lean towards those a little bit. If I'm holding a really light pen, for me, it's like I have a harder time holding on to them. I'm rougher on my pens, so that's kind of how I do it. I don't really, I don't hate light pens. I just don't love them. So I tend not to necessarily lean towards them. It's not a hard, fast rule. But if I'm sitting down and running for long sessions, I might go with a slightly lighter pen. But I usually prefer something, a little bit heavier. And that's just really 100% my personal preference. Some of the pens that end up being kind of my tops, really good kind of all-around pen. Of course, I've talked about this like a zillion times before, is a Pilot Custom 74. I do like this. This is a nice balance to me of like a longer pen that's a pretty good like mid-size to slightly larger, not too heavy, not too light. Really kind of perfect balance for me. So I love this pen, and this pen is 22 grams. So kind of in there with like the Lamy All-Star, like around Lamy Lux, that type of weight. Let's see here, Pilot Metropolitan, slightly heavier, 26 gram. Grip on this is just a little bit thinner, so I don't like this one quite as much for really long writing sessions, but I like to keep a fine nib around to use and kind of carry with me. It's a very durable pen, so it's great for that kind of thing. What else have I got? The Lamy 2000, fantastic all-around pen, 25 grams. I find that pens in like that, mid 20 gram range are really good in terms of like an overall size. Of course, if you have something with a lighter cap and heavier body, the balance could be a little bit different there in terms of your preference. And then the heavier one that I actually carry around pretty much as my daily carry these days is the Visconti Homo Sapiens. This one's 43 grams, so it's a little heavier, but I really don't write with this one posted. So that's probably part of why when it's not posted, it's closer into that like mid 20 range. So I find that tends to be kind of more my preference, and we have the gram weights of the whole pen, just the body and just the cap on every pen that we have at gouletpens.com. We weigh those out because I know that kind of thing matters to you, so that's pretty cool. Next question. I got a couple of paper questions this week actually, so let's do it. Pax1969 on Twitter says, not fountain pen per se, but related. Do you have any plans to do an education page on the notebooks you carry? Like a comparison tool with bleed through or ghosting tests or something like that. At the moment, I don't have anything like that. We don't have anything like that at Goulet Pens. And, I would say like oftentimes some of the most distinguishing characteristics in terms of people's preference with paper can actually be somewhat subjective in terms of like how it feels on the page, and ghosting and bleed through and feathering and stuff like that. There's no like scientific measurement necessarily for that. There's like paper gram weight, and there's, the ruling size and the overall dimensions and stuff like that. But even that's not like 100% indicative of how the paper will necessarily perform. So it gets to be in a kind of a little bit sticky place. Now I know, we develop things like the swab shop and the nib book, which don't necessarily scientifically address that stuff. I just don't really know the best tool that I would develop that would kind of show that paper stuff. Because then it's like paper can vary so much depending on what nib and what ink and all that kind of stuff. Man, this camera's really wigging me out. It's like throwing up these like red bar that's like coming across. Anyway. I'm just gonna keep rolling. So truth be told, I took this question not so much to give you a great answer, but more to ask for feedback, like in terms of how you're shopping for paper or what answers you're looking to have regarding paper. What is it that you would really want? Because in the past, the questions for paper have been all over the place and haven't been like such an obvious thing. Like with the inks, like for the swab shop, for example, it was pretty much, we can't see the ink color. We see the bottle, we see the ink name, but we need to see the color. It's like, oh, well, we could swab it and then we'd show the color. Like there's your swab tool. Paper, it's a little harder. What's the bleed through like? It depends on bunch of different factors. So I'm sure I could like standardize on certain things. I'll have to give it some more thought. But I think I would be, I think I would have to give it some more thought. And I'd just really love to know. So honestly, just give me feedback, put comments. If you're listening to this on the podcast, go jump on YouTube, throw some comments there, or shoot an email to my team at info@gouletpens.com. Or if you're on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, just leave comments wherever you are natively, and my team will gather that feedback. Feedback? That's what I just said. Feedback, and then maybe we can actually do something with that. But I just wanted to kind of drum up interest and see where everybody kind of stood with that one. Next paper question I have is from coreyfraer on Instagram. What are your favorite top-bound notebooks? Staple, spiral, or otherwise? I don't really know what otherwise would mean, but says I'm a lefty and they fit my usage best, but there aren't a ton of them out there. You are correct. There are not a ton of them out there. It's funny because I'm kind of a conundrum. I like use top-bound paper every day, and I also like never use it. So I use a Rhodia dot pad, either in the 16 or the 18 format, pretty much on a daily basis. And I love that format. It works super great for me, but that's for like my kind of just write something on it, tear it off, and then toss it. It's not really like a carry around notebook so much. It's more of a notepad that I can just kind of easily tear off. The problem with a top staple bound or glued binding or something like that is you can really only write on the one side. You can't really fold it over easily and use it on the other side. You can, but then you're only using kind of like half a sheet, and it just doesn't work quite as well. If you want to kind of maximize both sides of the page, that's where a top wire bound like the Clairefontaine Pupitre can come in handy. And I actually filled this one. Did I fill it? No, I didn't fill it. I think I just kind of stopped using it. I used most of it. I used probably, no, maybe I did fill it. Oh, hang on. Oh, I did. I just didn't fill it down to the bottom of every page. Yeah, I actually filled this notebook. Okay, I have like 5 pages at the end. But I used basically most of this notebook. But really kind of only one side of it. I think I did flip it over to use on the other side. The challenge with this is, you know, you write on one side, you flip it over, then you flip it back, and then when you're trying to reference the notes, it's like, which one is where? And I'm making it kind of seem like I should be in a black and white scene on an infomercial where it's like, I can't figure out a notebook. But the truth is, it's just not quite as convenient, especially to look at things landscape, like a single page. That's kind of how our eyes were designed. If you think about it, like, I'll try to educate you just a little bit about something that I barely know anything about. When you have your phone, for example, right? Like we have our phone and we are looking at things and it's like you're looking at it vertically. But the problem is you really want to be looking at it horizontally. If you think about like why televisions and movie screens are all landscape format, that's because you have 2 eyes and they're next to each other. You don't have eyes vertically on your head. So it's more natural to look at something in a rectangular shape, right? So when you're looking at a phone that's like this, or if you're looking at a notebook that is like this, your eyes are having to work more than if you're looking at something that's like this. So if you have a traditional notebook, and you can buy a traditional book. So if I have a traditional notebook that's like this, and I'm opening it up, and I'm looking at it in a landscape pattern, it's more natural for my eyes than it is in this format, which I think in a very unscientific explanation might be why these are just not as popular, because it's a slightly less natural way for us to read. That's why we don't see books that are printed this way. They're all so that you open them like this. Now, of course, there are definitely good reasons to use it that way. If you're left-handed, then you don't end up with this binding that's kind of in your way and all that kind of stuff. So I totally get where you're coming from, and it's purely a matter of personal preference, but I do think that's why they're just not as popular. So you don't see as many options out there. My 2 favorites are the Rhodia dot pad in the 16 and the 18 format and the top staple bound, and then the Clairefontaine, which has some of the best paper. It's my favorite paper. The ruling on these is either going to be 7 or 8 millimeters, depending on the size that you get. And it's a top wire bound, so you can flip it over. It lays really flat. You can write on both sides a little easier, so I do like this format slightly better. And then give an honorable mention to Maruman Nemesine. They have some top wire bound options as well that is more than just blank lines. Plain lines on the page, and it has some more formatting and stuff like that to it. So that tends to work pretty well. Okay, next one. This is a personal question from amyskretta on Instagram. Which pen shows are you planning to attend this year, and what about a pen meetup here in Virginia? I am planning on attending the DC Pen Show. That's kind of like my annual one that I go to because first off, it's kind of where I had my first pen revelation back in 2009, where I was like, I should do something with fountain pens. And clearly, that's worked out. So I go back every year. I've not missed the DC Pen Show since. And I go each year partly because my in-laws live really close by, and we can just like drop our kids off, and Rachel and I are like, woo, no kids. But it's also because there's a lot of other people there, really. And I actually have another question about pen shows coming up next, so I'll elaborate on that more. But I love just meeting people, vendors, people that I do business with, like people in the industry, and then of course people who are just pen fans and enthusiasts in the community. It's awesome. And DC is a great place to do that because it's a big show, tons of people there. It's a great like meetup opportunity and stuff like that. It gets a little crazy though. I mean, last year was like so intense. I mean, I did not stop for like 2 straight days. It was a little crazy. So, and I'm sure it's gonna get worse every year because, not worse, better, busier every year because there's just more going on, and the longer that I'm kind of in this business, the more I'm going to be doing my thing. So it's pretty cool, but I do get pretty pumped for the DC show every year. Other shows, I was really seriously thinking about doing LA. That was just this past weekend. I was thinking about going there. I did so much traveling in the beginning of January and kind of around the holidays and stuff that I just wore myself out, and I was like, I just can't even. Part of the reason I was looking to go to LA is because I knew that Dante Del Vecchio was going to be out there because Pennider's distributor for the US is Jaffa. Jaffa is based in LA, which is near the LA Pen Show. So I was thinking about going out there, doing a little tour, doing the whole thing, meeting Dante and all that. But Dante actually ended up touring and coming around here. So I was like, well, if he's already coming here, I don't need to see him like the week before when they're busy and crazy with the show and all that. So it just ended up not working out, and I needed to stay home, and I traveled so much, and Rachel had to deal with the kids all the time, and it was just a lot. So I was happy to kind of stay home for that. But, looking at other shows, I just don't know. I mean, Raleigh's not too far from me. Baltimore's not too far from me. They're smaller shows, and it's hard because I still have young kids. They're not like toddlers anymore, but they're still young and just in formative years, and the time that I spend with them, I want to be very intentional. Theoretically, I could bring them to the show, but that would be even more distracting than anything else. It would be hard to manage my kids at the show. So I don't know. I haven't locked anything down in terms of other shows. I wouldn't try to go to sell anything. I wouldn't try to go to, do a whole bunch of crazy stuff. Just meet people and hang out and get to see other stuff that's going on. But it's tough. It's a lot to travel and do that because I just have a lot of irons in the fire. So I don't know. I really like doing it. Going to shows and stuff like that. It's just tough to work it out. And then a pen meetup here in Virginia is kind of your follow-up question there. I theoretically, that would be really cool. I love people. I love pen people. I love pens. So yeah, of course, like hosting some kind of meetup could theoretically make sense. If you've gotten to see the office tour that we did here, you see like we got a pretty sweet space. However, trying to host something here and having basically a bunch of people walking all around our office with laptops and pen inventory and stuff everywhere, like people's personal stuff, like art, like it just wouldn't go well. We have no real way to like section off part of our office. And we would basically have people wandering all around all over the place. And so that would be kind of a liability issue. So I'm, not really knowing how to address that. And plus we're in like an office complex. We're not in like a public place with the appropriate parking to be able to host stuff like that. So our landlord's like not super crazy about us doing that kind of stuff. So we could look at doing something more locally at like a restaurant or a brewery or something like that. That I could probably see getting into a little bit more, but really as a local thing, I just have no idea how many people would want to come to something like that. Because my fear, take this in the right way, but my fear is that we would have too many people that would try to come. And we would like just not have the right infrastructure to be able to deal with that. So I don't know, we'll have to give it some thought. It's certainly been in conversation. We've been talking about it, kind of on our team and like, what would that look like? I just don't know. It hasn't like come to fruition yet, but if everybody's like knocking on our doors and something comes up that it's a really obvious thing that we could do, maybe we'll consider that, but we just haven't been able to kind of take that on quite yet. But it definitely wouldn't be like a pen show. Like we wouldn't try to sell anything. We wouldn't try to hawk anything. We wouldn't be able to bring a whole ton of, it's just, it would have to be like a hang out and play pens and just kind of thing. I don't know. It's not solidified in my mind what that would look like yet, but I'm thinking about it. All right. I do have a bunch of business questions now to close this thing out. 3 business questions to be exact. So we're at number 4, and I'm going to move on into 5, 6, 7. All right. So this first one is from ArcImage on Twitter. Since you don't go to exhibit at pen shows, what do you feel you miss out on by not going? This is a great question because honestly, I believe that when you're doing things right in business, and honestly, even if you're not doing things that right, if you're running a business, you will often suffer from indigestion more than you will from starvation. And what I mean by that is there's so many opportunities and things that you could pursue, things that present themselves as possible options, that you're going to suffer from trying to do too many things at once instead of going narrow and really going deep on one area. And that's what we've done. So that's why we have a mission statement. That's why we have our core values, all that kind of stuff. It's sort of like the idea of, if you have too much to do, don't create a to-do list, create a to-don't list. And that will help to cut out the things that you shouldn't be distracted by or lose focus by doing. So, pen shows is one of those things that it's definitely something we could do, but we've created a mission statement that specifically says online. And because we want that to be our core focus. We could certainly look to do pen shows, we could look to do meetups, we could look to do all this kind of stuff. Not to say that we won't ever do it, but everything gets run through the context of our mission statement to provide fountain pen enthusiasts with the most personal online shopping experience through comprehensive education, exemplary service, and products we believe in. So that online shopping experience, how is this going to help with the online shopping experience? Doing videos? Yes. Web development stuff? Yes. Product reviews? Yes. Pen shows? How is that going to help exactly? So it would have to fit within the context of, is this going to help us serve everybody online? So yes, sometimes I do go to pen shows. I create video content, do interviews, create connections, do business things that then allow that to happen. But it can't take away from the other things we have going on. So it's all got to run through that. So with that said, I absolutely have to understand and know exactly what it is I'm giving up by not doing a pen show, because for sure there's some good wins and some things that I love about pen shows. But the things that I'm giving up intentionally, it's face-to-face interaction for sure is the biggest sacrifice. We're sitting in this building all day, we're shooting video, we're playing with pens, and we have a big team so that we're getting to interact with each other and do some exciting stuff around that. But interacting with you all directly, one-to-one, face-to-face, it's a whole different experience. And I love it, and it's so fun and vibrant. But it is tough because we only have so many hours in a day. So, doing pen shows, I miss out on that. That's one of the things that I love the most about pen shows is getting to meet you all face to face. Customers, vendors, friends of ours. We got friends in the pen community and we only get to see them at shows sometimes and stuff like that. So it's great to see everybody in person, do selfies, do, play pens, trade things, and just get to make memories together. I really don't buy anything at shows. I have plenty of pens as it is, so I really don't need to go shopping for anything while I'm at shows. I haven't bought anything in a pen show in years. So that's not so much of my thing. And then, it's like sometimes they'll have new things to show. I'll get to look at certain limited edition things like the, Monograppa Chaos pen and just crazy stuff that I don't normally get to see in person necessarily. But we have vendors and stuff that are traveling around and they go to, a lot of vendors and a lot of retailers, and we're one of them sometimes. So they'll often come and show us new products that we have, and we'll get to see things kind of in advance and stuff like that. Just like Dante was here this week, who's showing me some stuff that's going to be coming out. So I get to see some of that stuff. So he was at the LA Pen Show and showed some of that stuff, sure. But for me to go to a show and see that stuff in person, it's not always super practical because I've often found out about it in advance as a retailer. I would say exposure. Not everybody who goes to shows necessarily shops online or does online stuff. Certainly I have a greater opportunity for reach and exposure online because anybody with a computer can stumble on my free videos. But getting to see people at pen shows who may have never heard of me. So for sure I give up on some of that. Getting real-time feedback in person is pretty cool, especially, the way that people hold pens and stuff like that. It can be very different. We do a lot to try to troubleshoot stuff either virtually or on the phone or, video chat or something like that, over email, whatever we have to do. But when you're in person and you can see the way somebody's holding a pen and they're having a certain trouble writing it and you can just hold the pen and tweak the nib and you can do a couple different things, it's just so much faster to be able to address that stuff. So I miss out on that. You know, it's a conscious choice. I have to understand what it is I'm giving up by not doing it. It's opportunity cost for sure. Just like anybody who goes to a show, they're giving up the opportunity to shoot a video or whatever, go camping with their kids or whatever it is. You know, there's always a trade-off. We only have 24 hours in a day, and we have to decide how we can best use that. And it's an unfortunate thing that I give up that experience on a frequent basis, but that's a decision I've made. And you know, it's something that's kind of been on my mind, like, should I travel to more shows? But it's still just really hard on my family when I travel a lot, so I have to limit it, unfortunately. Next question, this is from Cavs Quiz Bowl on Twitter. I would like you to talk about what are your most common types of orders. I don't really need data. Do you get lots of beginners ordering a cross-section, 100 ink samples at once, lots of cheap pens at once? You know, honestly, Cavs Quiz Bowl, it's all over the place. We definitely have a focus on new pen users. That's why we do so much education stuff, because at a very, very just macro level, I view it as if we don't try to get more people interested in fountain pens, then fountain pens are going to become less and less relevant, and we will have fewer new pens coming out and less exciting things to keep us all vibrant in the hobby. So that's unfortunate for me to think about that kind of stuff. So I always try to think about, okay, how can we, you know, focus on bringing more people in? So for sure, I probably am driven more by that. And for sure, at Goulet Pens here, we're probably seeing more orders coming through that reflect the type of stuff that new people would be into. Not to say somebody couldn't come out the gate and want to buy Homo sapiens, but that's not really usually the case. Usually people are getting things like a Pilot Metropolitan, a Platinum Preppy, a Lamy Safari, a Varsity, you know, something like that. So for sure we get some of that kind of stuff, but it's really all over the place. Like, some people are all about notebooks and that's all they get. Some people are notebooks and ink, but they've already got a few pens. Some people it's pens. Other people, it's, I'm gonna order 50 ink samples. That kind of thing is actually quite rare. Usually with ink samples, people are dropping a couple in their orders, or they might buy a packaged set of ink samples. You know, it's not like the whole 100 ink samples at once. That is rare. That is quite rare, actually, in the grand scheme of things. But you know, it's just it's a smattering of everything. Like, really, everybody's just kind of getting whatever it is they're interested in. Certainly, like, when there's new product launches that happen, like, for example, the Duraflex was this week. You know, it's a relatively affordable, pretty high quality flex nib pen. That is going to be more exciting for people for a lot of reasons, and that is going to spur a lot of people that will get the Duraflex and maybe some, you know, high shading inks or something like that, or some Tomoe River paper, whatever, things that kind of cater towards what that purpose is. But that honestly probably has the single biggest effect as to what sells, is like what hot new thing is in, right? Because you know, we all love shiny new things. So that probably has a lot of it to do. But other than that, it's just all over the map. All right, and this last question I have for this week is from sammiethesammerI. Very clever Instagram handle there. I have a leadership question. How often do you have staff meetings, and what do you use those meetings for? Do only your direct reports attend these meetings, and do you ever do company-wide meetings? The answer is yes. We have lots of meetings at Goulet Pen Company. It was not always that way. So it started out with just me and Rachel. So we would never have meetings because we were together all the time. So I don't think we had a single meeting, like an official, like, hey, everybody, let's round up and have this thing called a meeting that will start and end at a certain time. Most of it was just like, hey, guess what? Blah, blah, blah. This thing is coming today. Okay, cool. You know, when you're working out of your garage and there's like 4, 5, 6 people, you just kind of walk in and you shout and you're like, hey, okay, well, you guys want to grab lunch? All right, let's do it, you know, and that was kind of it. But as you get bigger, things need to be a little more structured, and people have a little more segmentation of roles, and there's certain lines of communication that need to happen, and everybody's, you know, especially as we grew a little bit and we started to get into a little bit bigger space, and we were like not working within visual eye shot of each other all day long, then it became like, what did you do all day today? Well, really? Well, I was doing this other thing. Oh, really? You were doing that? Oh, well, I made a decision not knowing that you did that. Oh. maybe we should like talk to each other a little more intentionally. That's really all the meeting is just trying to get on the same page with each other. So as things have gotten bigger and more complex, we've had more and more and more meetings. But our meetings have been a bit of an evolution. So without completely exhausting this, because I could talk about it forever because I spend a ton of time planning out meetings and being intentional about meetings, I have basically had to, from the ground up, structure a lot of the way that we've done meetings around here. And I've read friggin' whole library of books on meetings and business development and structure and all this kind of stuff. And I'm by no means an expert, but there is a method to the madness that we have at Goulet. So probably the best meeting methodology that I've kind of latched onto has been Patrick Lencioni with he has a book called Death by Meeting, which is kind of funny, but also, kind of hits true as to like most meetings are boring, but they shouldn't be, right? Like poorly run meetings are terrible and make you want to quit your job. But meetings, for what they're supposed to be for, should actually be some of the most exciting and vibrant time that you have together at work, if it's done right. And so I kind of get that and understand that. Like, meetings are the time where you should bring your ideas to the table, hash things out, make some decisions, and get charged up and be ready to go attack the world with your new plan with everybody on the same page. That is what should come out of a well-run meeting. So I try to bring some of that energy to every meeting that I'm in. And I'm in meetings a lot. Like, I'm probably in meetings, I added it up somewhat recently. But if you think about this, like, okay, you think about like, oh, Brian's shooting a video, Brian's getting to play with pens all day. No, like, we have 42 people here. There's just a boatload of communication that has to happen. I am in meetings for no less than 5 hours a day, easily, probably more than that, honestly. And then when you consider the time that Rachel and I spend talking together at night and getting on the same page, like, yeah, I can easily have a day where I'll spend 7 or 8 hours talking with other people intentionally about things that are going on in the company. And that's just, that's just where we're at. Part of it is because I'm a leader and I believe in the concept of your leadership lid. So as good of a leader as I am, and as much as I have my stuff together and understand what's going on and can help other people with what's going on, to the degree that I'm doing that is the degree that everybody else can grow and rise up and have opportunity too. So I believe strongly in that. And it just takes a lot of time. It just takes a lot of time to run a really well-run company where everybody feels plugged in and communicative and involved, and then can make good decisions out of that. It just takes a lot of communication. So the way that we've structured things here, so Pat has his book Death by Meeting. He also has a book that he wrote as a follow-up to, he wrote like 9 books in a similar size, vein, structure of like as Death by Meeting, but he kind of summarized a lot of them with a book called The Advantage. So if you're running a business that's smaller than just like a handful of people, Pat Lencioni's book, The Advantage, is really solid. And it covers a lot of stuff that was in Death by Meeting. Also, if you're running a smaller company, like a book called Traction by Gino Wickman is also really solid. That comes up kind of from a parallel kind of structure of Vern Harnish's The Rockefeller Habits, if you're familiar with that at all. Traction is kind of built on that, references Pat stuff. So it's a lot of, kind of things. Pat Lencioni's a little bit more ethereal, but also he's pretty structured, but he deals with larger corporations. Gino Wickman deals with smaller companies, and so it's a little bit more tactical. And I found both to be very helpful. So meetings should be relevant, they should be clarifying, they should be exciting and contextual. And that's the reason why most meetings suck, is because of a lack of context. So we have basically 5 different types of meetings here at Goulet. We have daily huddles, or stand-ups as we call them. We have weekly tactical meetings, which is basically a similar thing, but it's like what's keeping a lens of what's going on in the next week. We have ad hoc strategic meetings, which could be scheduled or as events come up, but slightly longer form, more in depth about a single topic. We have quarterly offsite meetings for our leadership team to make much more strategic things and set kind of quarterly goals and initiatives. And then we have an annual offsite meeting as well that kind of wraps onto the quarterly schedule. That's like a larger annual planning meeting. And then we have one-on-ones. So everyone in the company has a one-on-one meeting with their leader we shoot for every week, not every single person every week, but basically we shoot for once a week. You are sitting down with structured time, maybe 10, 15 minutes, a little bit longer for leaders because there's a lot more going on. And sometimes context needs to be worked out a little bit more. But for me, with my leaders, it might be half hour to an hour every week that I'm sitting down one-on-one with them, talking about what they have going on, their goals, their teams, their initiatives, structure, tactical stuff. And that time is really important as well. So we have basically the structure that we have is we have a leadership team. So we have a leadership team of about 10 people. It's called what we call the broader leadership team. We have a senior leadership team that's really just a core few of us who are responsible for all of the larger things that go on and keep a company perspective all the time, looking out for the whole team. We have a leader for each department. At least one leader for each department, and then we have everybody who's in basically any type of managerial leadership, supervisory type role is on what we call our broader leadership team. So we will meet all of us every morning for like 10 minutes. And it's just like, hey, like what products are coming in today? We were planning to promote this certain thing. Oh, we can't do that because this product doesn't come in yet. Oh, okay, so we'll adjust that today. Oh, guess what? Actually, we have 2 people that are sick in customer service today. Let's go ahead and hold back. Like just this week, we were originally going to launch the Durograph on Tuesday. The Duraflex on Tuesday. And, we ended up having 2 people that were on vacation and 1 person was sick. So they were like, hey, we're down half the team and we're catching up from a 3-day weekend because we were closed on Monday. They're like, we'll do whatever's best for the company, but it would really serve us better and serve customers better to hold off the launch a day so that we can adjust. And so it was like, all right, cool. So if we hadn't had that morning huddle, we would have ended up in a situation where we would have done a launch on Tuesday, and it's turned out to be kind of an epic launch. And so it would have been a real struggle for our team to handle that. So making those kind of daily decisions is really helpful. 5, 10 minutes, 15 at the most if there's something crazy going on. Doing that every morning. And then from there, each of the leaders goes to their teams, gives context as to what's going on, and they work out the logistics of what they need to do to attack the day. And so we're doing that every single morning that we're open. We're having that tactical meeting like that. Each team will then have a weekly kind of tactical meeting talking about like, okay, well, here's what we have going on, because some teams it's like they need to front load their schedule heavier in certain parts of the week, or if we're doing a really big product launch, like Lamy Vibrant Pink, it was going to be arriving on a Friday. And it's like, okay, this is a pretty big launch. Usually we're kind of waning on Friday. We try to front load our week because we're catching up from the weekend. So like our fulfillment team, a lot of them start to leave early on Fridays and stuff like that because they've already put in a lot of their hours in the beginning of the week. But if we have a launch on Friday, it's like, hey, we might need somebody to stay late. We're going to do some overtime. We're going to do all these other things. Do we need to open on Saturday? That's rare, but we did that for the Lamy Vibrant Pink. Who's able to work? That kind of stuff can be more on a weekly rotation in terms of a meeting structure. And then we'll do... what else? Let's see here. Oh, in that context as well, our broader leadership team that we're talking about, the leaders of all the teams, will meet like once every 2 weeks as like the 10 of us, and we'll talk through like, okay, what's going on in the company, keeping on kind of like a 2-week lens there. And then we have strategic meetings, which are more like, they could be ad hoc stuff. So it could be, a specific event or a specific issue that's going on. Like, hey, we have this, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something recent that's kind of gone on in here. Oh gosh, I can't even think about specific issues that have gone on, but it might be something, kind of bigger company related stuff that like development reviews, right? Like we just came up on our annual development reviews. So the last one that we did, it was like, hey, we're all coming up on our development reviews. How are you approaching them? What if you have this certain thing? What's the best way to structure this conversation? So, we might have contextual kind of conversations around issues like that, for our broader leadership team. And then we do a company meeting every single week. We do that. It's rare. We canceled it this week for we had illnesses and we were catching up and we had missed a day and all that. But most of the times I'd say we do probably 48 of them a year. But we'll do that once a week, and I lead those meetings, and I'm talking about what's going on in the company. For the next one, I'll be like, hey, we had the Duraflex launch. Here's what went really good. Here's what we could have done better. Boom, and we'll kind of celebrate a little bit. We had Dante visit. We'll be like, hey, here's what we talked about with Dante. Boom, 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 boom. Whitney was you know, shooting pictures. Sarah was on vacation. Whitney was shooting pictures. I mean, it was crazy. Like, we had some new stuff that Dante had to show us, and like we had to coordinate because he was only here for like 3 hours. So I was like, all right, we got to come in. We got to talk this business. We got to do this. We got to show and give a tour. We got to talk about this. We got to shoot a video. So we got to schedule that out. Boom. Andy's got to set up in this room, and we're over here, and then. And it was like, we have these pens, we want to show it in the video. We have to talk about the pens and show them. We also need to have them photographed because they have to take them with them. So we got to photograph them while they're here. And we're trying to show them in the video. And it was like pens were just like being passed around all over the place while they were here. It was kind of chaotic, but in a really kind of fun way. And so, you know, stuff like that we'll explain in a company meeting and, you know, get to celebrate those kind of things that people in the company might not have seen. We'll shout out our company values. We'll do our mission statement. We'll do some kind of announcements of things. We'll be like, you know, hey, we decided, you know, our culture squad, we have an internal culture squad, might get up and be like, hey, you know, we're going to be doing, you know, writing letters, you know, for veterans, or by writing, you know, something like that. Or, hey, we got this party that's coming up, and, you know, we're going to be doing this thing. So just announcing stuff like that. Or, hey, you know, clean out the refrigerator, please. That kind of stuff. And then one-on-ones, we do that with every single person in the company has some kind of one-on-one meeting scheduled, and we try to do it weekly. And that is actually one thing that's really helped a lot in terms of our culture. It's a huge commitment of time, but honestly, it's like so much of why there's tension sometimes at work is because things get bottled up and people just kind of go and they forget, and they, you know, but in those one-on-one meetings, we're talking about, hey, how are you doing right now? You know, how am I doing as your leader? What could I be doing better help you? You know, or if there's an issue that needs to be addressed, it's not like a super critical, like, I need to pull you aside and tell you this right now. We just kind of make note of that, and the next time we're in a one-on-one, be like, hey, you know, last week, you know, a couple days ago, I noticed you had this little interaction. You know, the way you phrased that was kind of, you know, thinks back to what we talked about a couple of weeks ago about how you can come across kind of brash sometimes, and that was an example of it. And they'd be like, oh, yeah, okay, you're right, and now I see that. You know, and so they can just kind of touch base on these little things and make little course corrections, and you kind of like have this little heartbeat of you're interacting with each other on a regular basis in those settings. You can save up your issues for those settings and address them properly, and as opposed to just like bottling things up, and 2 months later it's like, it just kind of explodes somewhere, and you're like, what the heck is this person doing? We have very little of that happens around here because we're so communicative. I think that comes across in our culture. I think that comes across in how happy our folks are. We're all really plugged in. And all of this is kind of set up very much in a structured way where we have an annual planning meeting where we'll come up with, hey, what's kind of the initiatives that we're looking to do this year? And we'll plan it out. And depending on how large the initiatives are, we'll come up with a larger theme, like a big thematic goal for a 3 to 12 month period. And then we come up with what we call defining objectives. This is all laid out in Pat Lencioni's book, The Advantage. Well, defining objectives, it'll be like these 4 or 5 things. So one of them might be like, hey, we're trying to, enhance the Goulet experience. And so it's like, what does that look like? Well, da-da-da-da-da. In different teams, it'll mean different things, but we'll set that as like, that's a big goal that we want to have right now. Or like, when we were moving last year, moving on up was our thematic goal. And so it was a huge initiative. So when all these other random opportunities came about, it was like, oh, that's a really cool opportunity, but it's not going to come at the sacrifice of moving on up. So it just allowed us to kind of cut away the things that we didn't want to focus on or that we shouldn't focus on at that time, and just allowed us to focus. So everything kind of cascades down from there. We have those defining objectives. We set a scorecard with metrics that tie into things that plug into all that, and then all the meetings that we have are structured around those scorecards and around those goals and initiatives that we've set out. So as things come up and as things are going on, because there's a lot happening here every day, as things are going on, it all should plug back into something that all feeds into kind of where is our company going. So that's the reason why we have such unity. That's the reason why we have such direction and such momentum behind what we do, is because we spend a lot of intentional focus and time and energy on what we're doing. And in order to do that, we need to have a lot of meetings. There it is in a nutshell. This is not a perfect structure, and I will say it has evolved for sure. And it looks different for every company. It looks different for you based on whether you're a physical location, whether you're a virtual team, whether you're doing software or, retail or whatever. It can look like a lot of different things. But generally speaking, I found this is the structure that I've found from reading a bunch of things and then kind of interpreting how it should best look for our company. That's how it kind of works out well. But We're always reevaluating. We're always challenging whether things are working right. We've changed the format of our company meeting probably 5 or 6 times. What day should it be on? How long? Who should present at? All that kind of stuff. We've tried a lot of different things. And you always have to be guessing, like, is this the right way to do it? The worst thing that you can do is do something, and if you question it, like, why are we doing it this way? And if you say, well, that's the way we've always done it, that's a huge red flag around here. If that's the answer that comes up, like, people don't even say that really, because if it even comes across as like, well, that's how we've always done it, it's like, as soon as that comes up, it's like, oh yeah, okay, let's rethink that. Is this the best way to do it? Because probably it's not. if that's your answer, is the way we've always done it, no. So, little insight into how things run at Goulet. We're just trying to do the best we can, frankly. Question of the week for this week is not random, not related to any of this kind of stuff. I was just really kind of curious. If you had to guess, this is not a track your life kind of thing, but if you had to guess, how much time each day would you say that you spend sitting down and writing with an actual pen? Maybe you're a fountain pen, aficionado, and you want to be specific about that, but I would say just any pen, like a physical pen. How much time do you spend in minutes on a daily, average it out, on a daily basis, would you say that you spend writing with a pen? I would say for me, it probably averages out to be maybe 20 minutes a day, if I had to guess. Because I'm doing a lot of quick notes. Sometimes I'm doing longer writing sessions. Sometimes I'm sitting down and writing thank you notes that go out in your orders. But most of the time I'm playing with pens, I'm doing work, I'm doing other things. I'm writing down quick notes, so it's not like sitting down writing for hours continuously. But probably 20 minutes a day is what I would say I probably average on. It's not scientific at all, but that's what I got. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to check it out right now because we're doing a lot there. Be sure to check out our Facebook group too. I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but our Facebook, Goulet Nation, that group has got like 2,000 members on it, and it's just crazy vibrant, and everybody's having a blast on there. So be sure to check that out if you're on Facebook, because everybody's having a good time. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Goulet Q&A. Thanks so much for watching.